This is a presentation of DirecTV, exclusive home of the Red Zone channel, the Fantasy Zone, the Dan Patrick Show, 20 years of NFL Sunday Ticket, the Rich Eisen Show, and America's premier source for sports television.
Every morning at 7:15, he feeds his cat before getting into the shower. He doesn't ski. He considers it too dangerous. His blood pressure is 120/80. Paint watches him dry. He lives in a one-bedroom apartment. He is the least interesting man in the world. I don't always watch TV, but when I do, I prefer the box score. It starts now, my friends.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I can drink a lot of beer.
My motto is simple: C's get degrees.
Need a long, inappropriate hug? I'm your man.
I think I'm smarter than you, because I probably am.
Howard Collins for box score.
Hello, welcome to the Box Score. I'm Brock in Los Angeles, joined by the Danettes out in Milford, Connecticut. Well, Adrian Peterson suspended for the remainder of the season. McLovin, do you agree with the criticism of the NFL that they are being far too arbitrary with their punishments?
Wow, that's a loaded question, Brock. How much time do we have here? A half hour? You know what? I'll be totally honest. I was glad that Dan was the voice of record on this one because I'm very conflicted. I, of course, am appalled by what Adrian Peterson did to his son, but I am a bit concerned about the NFL's inconsistency. It seems like I agree, they're making it up on the fly.
Well, you had DeMaurice Smith on of the NFLPA, and he laid out his case as to why the NFL is being inconsistent.
When you give Ray Rice a 2-game suspension, there's a public outcry. You announce a new 6-game domestic violence policy that's not collectively bargained. The first person disciplined under the new policy is not given 6 games, but given an indefinite suspension. When it comes to Adrian Peterson, they create out of whole cloth a new policy and procedure that, again, isn't collectively bargained, is inconsistent with the CBA, and finally, and most pointedly, they refused to honor their agreement that they reached with Mr. Peterson.
I really like DeMaurice Smith's style. He uses the facts to make his case. He's not vague. He's not like, I'm very angry because it's not fair to Adrian Peterson. He doesn't judge things. He presents a series of facts that are already proven to be true or agreed upon and says, this is why it's not fair. This is what they did. This is what we agreed to. And he corrected Dan a few times when Dan had something not exactly right, which I really like. I don't like arguments based upon opinion as much as fact. I really like when someone uses facts to back up their case, and he was great. I really enjoyed it. And he's kind of I don't know much about him besides what I've seen on TV. I bet about $1 million he's got a law degree because he talks like every lawyer I've ever heard, and I mean that as a compliment. But he has a really good way of not being vague, which a lot of the NFL people have been vague.
But the union hasn't been 100% consistent through this whole thing either. You know, they've had a mixed message because they're in a difficult position because they're taking an unpopular stance.
Someone hit the hammer button.
But they did agree to this. You know, Roger Goodell has reviewed, and now they rightfully, I think, want to redo their collective. They want to redo the conduct policy under the collective bargaining agreement.
Is sort of put in the position of having to defend people who did bad things, you know, and especially the way that like words are twisted now and opinions are twisted, where it's like, well, we're gonna sort of stick up for Adrian Peterson's right to work. Like, oh, so you support child abuse?
Right.
No, of course not. Or, well, Ray Rice should have the right to play again. Oh, so you support domestic violence? No, of course not. But that's sort of the job of the union, is sometimes to defend the indefensible in a way.
Or defend the process.
Or or the process.
Yeah, they're defending a set of rules and processes that should be in place. The crime is incidental. It really is, and what we're talking about, that's the thing. We got a caller and they started talking to Dan about being against child abuse and it's no big deal in Texas. That's not what this story is about at all. All of us can assume what Adrian Peterson did is wrong on some level, high to low, but it's about a haphazard process that changes from week to week. And that's the story here. It's not about child abuse, not in the sports vernacular that we're talking about.
Well, you also had Patrick Peterson on today because the boss wanted to get a player's perspective on how the NFL is handing out punishment.
it's a very, very tough topic to talk about, and a very, very unfortunate situation what happened. But at the end of the day, the NFL have to do their job at the best of their ability and make the proper judgment at the right time.
But you want the commissioner being in charge with all of this, judge and jury? Is that fair?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to obey and abide by the rules. So I'm doing everything in my power to make sure I'm doing everything correct and doesn't leave any questions or any decision in his hands.
Yeah, Patrick, and understandably so, was being very careful there. I don't know if we got a full, strong opinion either way what's going on. He doesn't want to say anything that's going to stir up the Players Association or, fellow colleague, if you will, Adrian Peterson. And we did get an interesting note, which happens every so often, literally right before he was going to come on the air, from a PR person that was with him, that he didn't want to talk about Adrian Peterson at all. Obviously, from a journalistic standpoint, Dan and the rest of us would all look ridiculous to not ask him a question or two about what's the prevailing topic of the day. So Dan, in his way, was able to touch on it without getting into it so much where the guest would hang up on us or get all riled up. There's a professional way to handle these things, and he did understand ultimately that we did have to ask him a few questions about it. But you could tell from his response that he was intentionally vague and didn't really take a strong stand either way on what's going on with.
I was kind of surprised that Dan started the interview by saying, "I know you don't want to talk about this, but I'll find a different way to ask the question." That was sort of a interesting moment from him, where I'm like, "Whoa!" That was almost like a little bit of like he was annoyed by it,
yeah,
and called him out for it. I thought that was interesting.
It is tough because you get that at the last minute, and we have to decide in real time: do we dump this guest because we can't ask him a question? Do we work with the person, the PR people, whether it be there's two different PR staffs here working with Patrick Peterson. You got Tide and his whatever the PR people that is it Tide was the sponsorship, and then you have the Arizona Cardinals. So who was telling us this? Was it the Tide people? Was it the Cardinal people? Are they saying you cannot ask any questions, or not too many questions, or one question? We don't really like to make deals like this. And if someone says no questions about something, we say no interview. So luckily that wasn't put forth to us.
And sometimes it doesn't even come from the guest. You find out later on the guest was totally fine talking about a certain topic, and it's just because of the extra sensitive PR director of a team or a marketing person or whoever the interview was set up with. They're being extra sensitive, and without even talking to their client, they're trying to ward off things that could potentially
and usually
put them in a bad
PR
light.
people are supposed to make people look good, and usually in this kind of case, they make their own client look bad by saying he's not going to talk about something or speaking for him without clearing it with him. What if Patrick Peterson had a big comment? He's an intelligent kid. I heard him talk today, and he had some good thoughts about the hitting in the league. And what if he wanted to say something about Peterson? He actually backed the league a little bit, right, McLovin? He was more of a, he sided with the league a little bit about, hey, man, if you break the rules, you take the punishment, and the league has this in place. So he had some really good stuff to say, and maybe he wanted to say it, and maybe a PR person said, no, don't talk about this without asking his permission, which I don't know if that's what their job is.
Yeah, I am, Paulie. I'm like, no player says what he just said. Every single player I've ever heard says Goodell has too much power. Yeah. He basically said, I have no problem with this because I know I have to abide by the rules. He was very original throughout the entire interview.
Brought to you by Ted.
Yeah, it's interesting what goes on behind the scenes with these guys. Well, we asked the boss, does he like not working out these details on air while the cameras are rolling? Here it is, boss's thoughts.
I thought it needed to be mentioned because we had just talked about Adrian Peterson, and then you're going to have a player on. I would assume that he would have some kind of reaction to this. But Fritzy was told right before Patrick Peterson went on that he didn't want to talk about it. Well, I'm sure he didn't want to talk about it, but that didn't mean that I didn't want to ask him about it. If he chose not to answer it, I still have to ask the question. I don't like when people do that right before they come on, where somebody says, he doesn't want to talk about an issue. I thought Patrick Peterson was great, but the reason why you're seeing this played out is because I chose to have this format where you're seeing during the commercial breaks on radio that these things do happen. These are the discussions that we have. That was a real conversation I had with Fritzy and how he approached it and how we ended up approaching it on the air. So that was part of the transparency of doing the show this way.
Yeah, that is sort of, get to see the sausage being made, as Dan likes to say. And that sometimes you do get that last-minute curveball where they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we won't talk about X, Y, and Z. And it's either, like Paulie said, I'm sort of rehashing things, but all right, are we going to dump this or not? And luckily, we had a lot of things to talk to Patrick about. But, yeah, sometimes there's uncomfortable things because agents and marketing people and teams and all PR and whatever are all watching, and you're like, ugh, well, okay. See what happens.
And sometimes they go too far and they start providing information that we weren't even aware of.
Right.
Which happened on occasion. Oh, by the way, don't ask about that, that shoot or that tweet or
Don't ask about the girl in Las Vegas.
We don't even know. We never even heard about this.
Yeah, we had a singer on the show a couple years ago. We had a singer on. I'm not going to be too specific, but his PR people said, "Don't ask him about this." And we're like, "We didn't even know about this.
Yeah.
Now we want to know about this."
Yeah, the old third nipple question.
Yeah,
There we go. We opened it up by accident.
Dan's pretty comfortable with the cameras rolling, obviously, and natural. Paulie, were there any strong concerns back when you guys first started airing it about working these details out on air?
No, I don't think that. I kind of look forward to that. I like putting everything out there and doing the show entirely live. I think the toughest part initially, the first month of doing this show on camera, was to hide our own facial reactions to things. Let's say we had a guest who is less than good on the air. I may roll my eyes or look at Seton and go, "Oh, this guy's awful." And people can read lips. Seton and I sometimes have to do this move, like we're a pitcher and we're sending in place. That's half the reason I grew the mustache. But when you're first doing the show, when you're doing just radio, there's a lot of things you could do that you can't do when there's a camera on you. Reactions, verbal cues, jokes to each other, and those all stopped 5 years and 3 months ago.
And also discussing guests that we may or may not want to have on the show during a look-in. One of us may say, "I don't want so-and-so, he's awful, he's boring," or whatever. And, we may never get that person on again, but that's besides the point. Then a PR person or an agent hears that, and now all of a sudden maybe there's less access to some of their other clients or some of their other players because they didn't appreciate that it went over national TV that we don't like.
We have found a way to talk about things without giving names. So what we'll do is if we know we're coming back on air for that look-in during the commercial break, we will talk about the specific person by name during the point when we're not on the air. And then everyone knows, we know what we're doing. We'll start talking about this person with vague terms like, "Ooh, remember the last time she was on the show? That person was not very good," when they wanted to talk about, and then we don't tell the topic.
Maybe we make veiled references about a certain YouTube highlight that happens to be one of our favorites. We sort of mentioned those people without any names today, if
you know what I mean. Sometimes we'll sell people out. Machines to beat.
Okay. Coming up, AL MVP Mike Trout dials in, so cue the corny fishing jokes. Oh, and the water scenic.
There were 468 baseball players who made more money than Mike Trout did last year. And people looked at his estimated worth was close to $40 or $50 million. So the Angels got a bargain, and they got the MVP.
Welcome back to the box score. Dan gave some crazy stats about how much AL MVP Mike Trout is making. Seton, given Giancarlo Stanton's deal with the Marlins, that massive deal, how much do you think Trout's going to make on his next contract?
Well, I mean, you could hear how giddy he was when Dan asked him about, "Hey, so what do you think of that contract?" And he was like floating. You could hear him like, "Oh no, this is great! Can you believe he got all that money?" I go the exact opposite way, all right? If I'm Mike Trout, the last thing I want is like a $350 million contract. I want to be a bargain at somewhere between $200 and $250 million, where you can still make more money than anyone could possibly imagine and still be a good guy. Like, yeah, look, I'm a team player. I'm not going to charge you the full amount that I should get. I'm just going to go cheap at $200 million.
I say you grab every penny you can get up front, and then you don't know what the future's going to hold, or injuries, or what have you, and just don't worry about the. I appreciate Seton's point, but if you're going to make a tremendous amount of money, let them pile it on as much as you can. I know you would think that you can cover your rent on that amount, but with what Stanton got more than ever, he should totally be on cloud nine and say that if he's getting that, I can't wait to see what I'm going to get, or at least ask for.
Yeah, I'd ask for the GMP of Ecuador if I was Mike Trout. I mean, I can't even imagine the number. I mean, he's
no way.
What is he? 40% more valuable than Stanton? Or no, maybe not. But that's ridiculous.
I think the only way I would take a big discount is if I got to play where I really wanted. Like if I, let's say I wanted to play for the Chicago Cubs or the Boston Red Sox, the Padres, wherever it may be, I would give a discount to a team that was my dream team.
So who would the team be for you? The Cubs?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, because the chance of, let's say I was a very good MLB player.
If you had to pick between the Cubs and the White Sox.
Oh, it'd be the Cubs. The Cubs are the team I care about, and to take a hometown discount there, and then possibly lead them to the series.
Or like also the game's over at 4 o'clock, go straight over to the bars.
Right.
That's a fun place to play.
It's not.
I take a bar
bad
discount.
situation.
Yeah, you can pay me a little bit, but just pay for my tab.
I'm Mark Grace all day.
I don't know if Trout's going to the Cubs, but we did ask him, or Boss asked him, about Stanton's new deal.
I'm happy for him. That's awesome. You know, it's when you hear numbers like that, it's unbelievable, pretty crazy, and you know, couldn't be happier for him. You know, what a great guy, and you know, just happy for him.
But what could it mean for you down the road?
You never know. I'm just happy. I'm happy where I'm at right now, so I have to worry about that later.
You could hear his smile getting bigger. If you lean a little bit, you could hear the smile going all the way up his head. If his agent isn't on the phone saying, okay, here's what we do now. We rip up the contract we have and we adjust it, and we will, like Seton says, we'll give you a discount. We'll ask for 10% less than Giancarlo Stanton now. Or if you wait 3 or 4 years, we're going to ask for this.
Because he's sitting right around the corner, like in the next 2 years or so, he's going to jump from making like $5 million a year to $35 million a year for the last couple of years. So it's odd to think that, all right, well, in 2 years from now, I'm going to get a $30 million raise per year, but I'm actually looking at the $500 million contract I'm going to sign after that. Like, the future for that guy, monetarily, is insanity.
I don't know if I would be able to do this. I don't know if it would be legal, but let's say I was like a very good young player like Trout, and you wanted to stay with the Angels. What if you asked for $10 million a year, and if we win the World Series and I'm named MVP, you give me $50 million the next day? How would that go over? And then your upside is gigantic. No one would actually sign that because of how tough it is to get to the series and be the MVP. But can you imagine if he did that? He said, I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket for the fans. Because who's going to complain that the team writes him a check for $50 million if he's walking off with the World Series MVP?
Actually, probably by the time Trout signs his next contract, that might be his figure, $50 million a year.
Could be.
Well, he is just the next guy who's going to be a long line of overpriced contracts. I mean, let's just face it, none of these ever work out like, you know what, that $250 million was actually a bargain. That really worked out for us. He's just the next guy who's going to be criticized for being overpriced. Sorry.
All this is completely relatable. Fritzio, which one star are you taking on your team, Stanton or Trout?
I'm going to take Trout. I think Trout is the one that's got a lot more value, and I hope Trout gets every penny, not just because he was on the show today, although that helps, but he's worth every penny he deserves. And, you know, I don't know about the 40% figure that McLovin said, but it's not that far removed. I think if that's what Stanton's getting, sky's the limit for Trout, and I'm going to go Mike.
Wow, I love Stanton. I have to be honest, as a fantasy baseball player, Stanton just makes you drool. I guess that doesn't count. I would go Mike, but I do love Stanton too. I think that's a ridiculous number, but I'd be happy to have him on my team.
I'd take Trout just because he's done a little more consistently. It's not that much more though, but he's gotten a lot more pub by playing on a team that's more of a media market that gets a lot of national attention.
I'm going to take Trout for the reason that of the two of them, he's the only one I heard of before.
I don't believe either of them are on the Royals, as far as I know. Stick around. The boss got some inside info on Chris Mannix's early days.
CC Nothing.
Welcome back to the box score. You guys have had Chris Mannix as guest host several times in the Man Cave. McLovin, has he ever shared these stories about being a ball boy for the Celtics with you guys?
He hints at them a lot, and he makes it sound like, I don't know if he has, I don't think they won a ring when he was there, but he basically makes it sound like he would have earned a ring had he gotten one.
Does he mention him? When I met him, he said, I'm Chris Mannix, former Celtic ball boy. That was his first sentence to me when I met the guy.
It's odd. Well, former Celtic Paul Pierce was on today, and he talked about, he was asked a question that all you guys were, let me start that over here. Oh my God. Former Celtic Paul Pierce is on today, and DP asked the question I'm sure a lot of you were thinking.
Do you remember Chris Mannix as a ball boy with the Celtics?
I definitely remember Chris.
Was he any good?
Terrible. He would just stand there. He wouldn't rebound, just stand there all the time. Like, come on, Chris, what are you doing?
So, I mean, he was getting paid to be a ball boy. Did you
I know that was crazy. You know, and then when I saw him come to the game, he had a tie on, and I was like, "What you doing?" He had glasses, and I was like, he had a recorder, and I'm like, "What you doing? Go get some balls off the rack."
I love that, and that's going to live forever. Chris, obviously a good friend of the show and is on regularly, and now we have that sound to harass him with. Before, it was Ricky Rubio and his man crush on him, but now this may have superseded that. Paul Pierce just totally ripping him, saying that he was basically a useless ball boy for the Boston Celtics. So I can't wait till Chris comes on again so we can play that over and over again and make him crazy.
Well, here's the inside dope on that one. Chris Mannix was listening or watching the show when Pierce was on. He emailed me during the interview and said, ask him how I was as a ball boy with the Celtics. I said, we'll try to get it in. And he goes, I was his man, like I was his right-hand man. And I go, okay, we'll ask. And we didn't set that up. We didn't tell Paul Pierce we're asking. That was not produced. That was Mannix wanted us to ask, and he got exactly what he asked for.
Well, Pierce talked about losing friends when he was drafted by the Celtics, growing up being a Lakers fan. Paulie, did you guys lose any friends when you jumped ship from the mothership to come over to the DP show?
No, not really. I mean, this is a business. Everyone I was friends with there, I've kept in touch with. The people who I was friends, I kept in touch with. The people that were just acquaintances stayed acquaintances. It's nice to see those guys. We talk once in a while, and it's never anything personal. It's not like I screwed them over or they screwed me over. So yeah, I keep in touch with quite a few of those guys.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. No dramatic change. And, whoever you were kind of close with, you try to stay in touch with and see what they're doing, whether it's talking, whether it's email or social media, whatever. And, there's so many people there that you just kind of waved at in the hallway, or you didn't necessarily match the name to the face, so it didn't matter anyway. But no one, like Paulie said, it's just business. No one's holding it against you, and no one's making a whole big deal about it. You may miss each other once in a while, or certain experiences you had working on shows together. But, no one was devastated or crushed.
I've actually found that people from ESPN are actually nicer to me now than what they used to be. Like even like higher ups who had no use for me whatsoever then. Now all of a sudden I get a huge hug from, and I'm like, oh hey, what's up? Thanks, man. But that being said, I'm kind of a bad keeper and toucher. Like I don't really follow up with anybody, which is a really bad thing. So actually, almost everybody that I used to hang out with at ESPN, I don't really see anymore, and that's probably more my fault than theirs.
I agree.
Don't go away. DP and the guys learn a new catchphrase today. We'll see if it catches on in the man cave. Welcome back to the Box Score. We talked earlier about Patrick Peterson not wanting to get into the Adrian Peterson story. Well, he stuck around a while, and after a little bit, DP got him to loosen up, and he dropped this phrase on you guys.
The fastest receiver I ever went against is Mike Wallace by far. That guy, him and Deshaun Jackson I call it crackhead speed, to where, I don't know, it's just, those guys are just so fast, and you have to be on your A game when you're going against those guys.
Wait, crackhead speed?
Yeah,
That's not an official term.
Yeah, it's not an official term. It's just something we say back in the neighborhood back home.
Not an official term. I wasn't aware that those under the influence of crack or chronic abusers of it happen to get extra boost in their speed production, their output.
Yeah.
But it's like crackhead speed. It's just one of those things that you're sort of like listening and like, like dude's got like crackhead speed. Wait a minute, did he just say crackhead speed? What the hell was that?
I'm hoping Dan could work it into Football Night in America, or maybe Mr. Costas or Mr. Michaels. I'd love to hear Al Michaels say, let's go down the field. Mike Evans, he's tall. He doesn't quite have that crackhead speed that the kids talk about, but let's keep an eye on him for Tampa.
I'd like it if the NFL did have an official time.
Yeah,
what's his 40 time? 4.34, 4.42, 40, and just said crackhead.
You have to clarify that it's not an official term.
It's
You're
so
not going to find that in the
fast
NFL.
Looking forward to catching on.
Seton, what's the most off-the-wall phrase you've heard a guest say on air?
Oh boy, aside from crackhead speed, Passion Bucket got a lot of play. That was sort of weird.
I would say I like some of Reggie Miller's when he's in the man region. Now, he didn't say this on this show, but we highlighted these. He said someone got hit in the man region. He also said someone had a full steam of head, which is, again, that's a fantastic line by Reg Miller.
And same thing with Matt Stairs, didn't specifically say it on our show, but the ass hammering got a lot of play about guys
you just love
smacking each
getting
other.
your ass hammered by a bunch of guys.
That's very high up on the
Nice. I was going to go with Jim Morris saying I don't give a rat's ass about USC.
That got a lot of play.
Yeah, I'll give a rat's
shirts.
That's not quite Matt Stairs, though.
Yeah, all good ones. Fritzy, who's on tomorrow?
Gary Danielson, CBS lead college football analyst, will join us to get his thoughts on what happens tonight with the new playoff selection committee rankings. And David Fairty of the Golf Channel and CBS will join us right here in the Milford, Connecticut Man Cave. That's what's cooking so far on the Wednesday edition.
Look forward to it. Thanks for watching The Box Score. Set your DVR or tune in weekdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, only on Audience Channel 239. If you're on the go, the podcast available on iTunes or at podcast1.com. Ask Hammer.
I don't know a lot about sports, but I can drink a lot of beer.
My motto is simple. C's get degrees.
Need a long, inappropriate hug? I'm your man.
I think I'm smarter than you, because I probably am.
Hey! Thanks for watching The Box Score. Holy cow!
This was a presentation of DirecTV, exclusive home of the Red Zone channel, the Fantasy Zone, the Dan Patrick Show, 20 years of NFL Sunday Ticket, the Rich Eisen Show, and America's premier source for sports television.